Ask most people what made mountain driving dangerous for early truckers, and they'll tell you the same thing. The climb, the steep grade going up, the engine straining, the truck slowing to a crawl, maybe even stalling out halfway to the summit. That's the obvious answer, and it's wrong. Because for drivers hauling heavy loads over the worst mountain grades, the summit wasn't necessarily the part they feared most. It was what came after. Picture the truck reaching the summit after an hour of fighting for every foot of elevation. The engine's been working the entire climb, straining against the grade, against the weight of the load, against every inch of road that kept tilting upward. The driver's tired. His hands ache from fighting the wheel. Behind him, several tons of freight, and now the road starts dropping away in front of him. For a second, this feels like relief. The engine had finally stopped fighting the mountain. Gravity was doing the work now instead of working against him. The driver should have been relieved. Instead, this was the exact moment he needed to become more careful than at any point on the climb. Because gravity doesn't stop helping once the truck reaches a comfortable speed. It keeps pulling. It doesn't know when to stop. And a truck that was fighting just to keep moving 5 minutes earlier is suddenly fighting not to move too fast. That irony sat at the center of some of the worst mountain crossings in the country. And on one specific stretch of California highway, that problem became especially brutal. We're going to walk through exactly what happened there. Here's the one idea worth understanding, because it explains almost everything else in this story, and you only need to hear it once. Going uphill, a loaded truck wants to stop. Left alone, fighting gravity the whole way, it slows down and eventually stalls. Going downhill, that relationship flips completely. Now gravity is on the truck's side. The driver has to keep stopping it, and the thing he's using to stop it, the brakes, can become less effective the longer and harder he leans on them. Most trucks in this era only had brakes on the rear wheels, nothing up front to help share the load. And those brakes were mechanical, worked by rods and cables, instead of the hydraulic systems that came later, which meant they were never as strong or as evenly balanced as what a driver has today. Use them hard for a few seconds, and they worked fine. Use them hard for 5 straight minutes on a long descent, and they started to give less and less with every press of the pedal, right when the driver needed them the most. There was no gauge telling him how much stopping power he had left. He found out the same way every driver before him had. By feeling the pedal go soft under his foot. That's the entire fear, right there. A 1920s driver didn't need to understand the mechanics of why brakes could wear out under sustained use. He didn't need to know anything about heat or friction or metal. He only needed to understand one plain fact. If the truck got away from him, there might not be a second chance to get it back. Now put several tons of oil field pipe behind the driver. These weren't empty trucks coasting downhill for the fun of it. They were hauling freight, sometimes lumber, sometimes farm goods, and on plenty of California routes in this era, oil field equipment and pipe headed for the valley. Every time that road drops, that cargo isn't helping you stop. It's helping the mountain pull the truck forward. Heavy load, downhill grade, primitive brakes, that combination left almost no margin for error. And here's the trap sitting at the center of it. The driver couldn't just decide to brake harder to compensate. Leaning too hard on the brakes for too long was exactly what could take them away from him. None of this happened on anything resembling a modern mountain highway. The road itself gave the driver almost no room to recover from a mistake. It was narrow, heavily curved, and built around the mountain instead of through it. No runaway ramp waiting if things went wrong. No warning system telling him what was coming. No forgiving engineered geometry built to bail him out. That doesn't mean every mountain road in America was an impossible death trap. Plenty of grades were entirely manageable even in this era. But there were specific descents, the ones experienced drivers respected, the ones they talked about at gas stations and roadside stops, where everyone who drove them regularly understood exactly what was at stake. One of those roads sat in Southern California. It's still there today, carrying a different name. That fear wasn't hypothetical. On a stretch of highway called the Ridge Route. Opened in 1915, the Ridge Route climbed over Tejon Pass, connecting the Los Angeles Basin to the San Joaquin Valley. In Southern California, trucking depended on it completely, because there simply wasn't another practical way across those mountains at the time. The road itself was an engineering marvel for its era, built largely by mule-drawn scrapers rather than machinery. But it was also relentless. 36 miles, 697 curves, a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, and a road only 20 feet wide. At the northern end of the route sat a 6.5-mile stretch through Grapevine Canyon. The descent drivers came to know simply as the Grapevine. This was the part truckers respected most, and the trucks themselves were part of the climb that got them there. Truckers hauling oil field pipe out of Los Angeles toward Bakersfield used this route constantly through the 1920s. One of the trucks favored for that work was a 4-cylinder, chain-driven Mack nicknamed the Bulldog, built with a stub nose and an oversized radiator to help fight off overheating on the long climb. That radiator was so close to the cab that when the engine got hot during a hard climb, the heat became unbearable. Sometimes drivers would steer the truck while standing on the running board just to get farther away from the engine. A driver standing outside his own cab, one hand on the wheel, riding the running board up a mountain because the truck itself had gotten too hot to sit in. That was the climb. The descent asked something completely different of them. The truck didn't come down the Grapevine by relying on its brakes. It came down by controlling its speed before the brakes ever became the only thing standing between the driver and the canyon below. The brakes were a backup, because once the truck was already moving too fast, the driver had fewer options left. Shifting into the correct low gear before the descent began, using the engine itself to hold speed in check, that's how the drivers who actually worked this route managed it. But the worst part of the Grapevine wasn't even the whole mountain. It was one specific curve, Dead Man's Curve. Now reconstruct what that descent looked like for a driver who got it wrong. This isn't one documented individual. It's a composite of exactly what drivers on this road described happening. The truck crests the summit and starts down. The driver eases off, watching his speed climb slowly on the first grade. The road bends and he slows further to hold the curve. He comes out of it a little faster than he intended. He brakes again. The truck responds, but not quite as much as it did on the last curve. He tells himself it's nothing, just a long descent doing what long descents do. Another curve, another correction. The truck is still under control technically, but something has shifted in how he's watching the road ahead of him. He stopped counting how many miles are left in the descent. He started counting how many curves are left before the next one and how much brake he thinks he has left to give it. He's no longer thinking about simply finishing the descent. That is the psychological shift that made a long descent so different from a climb. Going up, the danger announced itself slowly in strained gears and rising engine heat. Going down, it could arrive quietly, one curve at a time, until it wasn't quiet anymore. He doesn't need anything to explode or fail catastrophically for this to go wrong. He just needs to be going faster than the road allows him to be. There was often nowhere safe to simply pull off and stop, no shoulder wide enough to fully recover. The road's accident history showed what happened when a vehicle lost that margin. Between 1921 and 1928 alone, the Ridge route was tied to dozens of fatal accidents, many involving vehicles that failed to negotiate a turn or lost control on a descent. That was the worst case. This is why veteran drivers on routes like the Ridge route built real reputations for knowing the mountain the way other men knew a trade. A veteran didn't just know how to drive the truck. He knew the mountain itself. He knew exactly where the road changed, long before the grade gave any visible warning. He knew which specific bends demanded an early gear change, and which ones would forgive a small mistake without punishing it. He learned it from the men who'd driven the road before him, older drivers passing down which curve to watch for, which stretch of grade started to bite sooner than it looked like it would. In some cases, he learned it from watching what happened to men who hadn't learned it in time. For a 1920s driver, experience wasn't a bonus skill layered on top of the job. It functioned as part of the safety system itself, because almost nothing else was there to catch him if he got it wrong. There was no engineered runoff lane, no braking system designed with a margin built in for a driver having a bad day. Compare that to what a driver has today. Brakes engineered for sustained downhill use. Road signs warning him miles in advance, curves designed to be forgiving, an escape ramp waiting if everything else fails, a truck built for exactly this kind of descent. In the 1920s, the entire system was just the driver, his truck, and the road. Nothing else was standing between a mistake and its consequences. But eventually, even that wasn't enough. The road itself had to change. The first real fix wasn't a better brake, it was a better road. In 1933, California opened the Ridge Route Alternate, a new alignment built wider and straighter, with dramatically fewer curves than the original highway it was replacing. Where the old road had demanded a driver's full attention on every one of its 697 turns, the new one gave him room to actually recover from a mistake. That was the first time the mountain itself became less of the problem. The second fix came from inside the vehicle. Over the following decades, trucks themselves got better brake systems designed to handle sustained downhill use without fading the way the old mechanical rear-wheel brakes had. The driver was no longer managing the descent entirely with a low gear and his own nerve. That changed in 1956, when California opened its first truck escape ramp. On what was then Highway 99, north of Castaic, in the same corridor the old Ridge Route once climbed. It stayed in service for roughly 13.5 years before later ramps replaced it. Go back to that same corridor today, and the mountain hasn't changed at all. It's still Tejon Pass. Gravity still works exactly the way it always has. In the 1920s, a driver had a low gear, mechanical brakes, his own hard-earned experience, and a narrow, unforgiving road with no escape built in if any of it failed him. Today, a driver on that exact same stretch has a wider highway, modern braking systems, engineered curves, warning signs telling him what's ahead, and a runaway ramp waiting if he ever needs it. And the Ridge Route was only one of the mountain roads that made early American truckers think twice before starting a descent. Across the country, there were passes even more isolated, steeper, and more unforgiving. Roads where a mechanical failure, a missed curve, or a little too much speed could turn a routine delivery into a fight for survival. Some of these passes are still famous today, and the reasons they're dangerous haven't always changed. And if you want to see the mountain passes across America that became notorious for doing exactly that, watch this next video.